Well, welcome to episode 5 of Our Sabbatical Story. My name's Rachel and I'm here with my husband Luke. Hello.
Hello. Pleased to be here.
You say that every time and I never welcome you. And we are here talking about our first ever sabbatical experience. We are local church pastors in the Hunter Valley of New South Wales, Australia. And we've been going through week by week our experience of a 2-month sabbatical. So we're right in the middle now, and it's going to be hard to...
We can't recap the whole 5 weeks.
We can't recap the whole 5 weeks.
That's why it's recorded.
So we've talked about why we took a sabbatical, how we've structured the time, and we're right in the middle period of time now where we wanted to each take some time out alone, one at a time, because we've got school-age kids. So one of us stayed home to do kids stuff and school, and the other one would go away for a few days on their own. So last episode we recounted your adventures of being away in Sydney on your own. And this week...
It's your turn to recount your experience.
Yes.
All right, well, let me ask you some questions. Let's start with this one. Where did you go? For how long? And why did you choose that particular adventure?
Yes. All year after we decided to take the sabbatical, and we, in our own little family budget, had allocated each other an equal amount of financial resource and said, go and spend that however you please. I dreamed about going to Noosa.
Oh, love Noosa.
Well, which is funny for me in one sense because I do love to go places I've never been before. And we had just been to Noosa for our summer holidays earlier this year. But I think it was the dream of having the opportunity to go there on my own. Because for me, one of the big attractions of Noosa is just the beauty of the nature all around. There's just so much beauty to see, and I particularly enjoy even the rhythm and routine of when I'm there, kind of doing this one particular walk. So if you know it, it's pretty famous, a walk that you can do from Hastings Street, right in the hustle and bustle of Noosa, up to a vantage point called Hell's Gates, where you get, it'd be like 240 degree views of the ocean on a head point or whatever you call it. So I do love to do that walk, and I've always had a dream in my heart to do a walk from Hell's Gates further around to, I can't remember whether it's Sunshine or Sunrise Beach.
Sunset Beach.
Which I've never been able to do
Sunflare Beach.
We've been there with the family.
Sunstroke Beach.
Because I have to cajole them and...
Sunbathe.
And try to inspire them, reward them, threaten them.
And then when they actually go, you've got to carry them and drag them and push them.
It's just a hassle. So I just thought, this is an opportunity where I could go by myself.
Yeah, good.
Do that walk every day. And so I went from a Monday, I flew out of Sydney to Sunshine Coast and then came home on the Friday. So 4 nights away by myself.
Yeah, great. 4 nights. No, 4 nights. That's a long time. I think I only had 3 nights away. Wow.
Loved it.
You must have saved up some of your own spending money. And
so
that's why, because you love
this is a once-in-a-lifetime event for a mother of 4 who works full-time, FYI.
And so you wanted to make the most of it. You wanted to really get immersed in nature and solitude and beauty, and so that's great. So we've heard some of the reasons why these kinds of breaks that we take on our own are important to us. So here's the next question. Did you go into that particular break with an agenda, with an idea of what you wanted to get out of it, or a plan for how you would spend those 4 nights?
Somewhat.
5 days. Was it 5 days in the end? Not really, because by the time you got there.
Travel. It was I had to get to the airport.
Yeah, it's 4 days. Pardon you.
Just going to get that cough out.
4 full days.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what was the plan? Did you have one, or did you just turn up and you're going to see what happens?
I had some plans. I knew that I wanted to do a deeper, slower reading of the book of Deuteronomy in the Bible. By the time I got to that point on my own where I had basically complete freedom with how I spent the time. I knew that I wanted to finish a book, which I have read before, but I started reading it again. I'd listened to it before, and then at the start of the year, I'd started reading it on paper, and then life got busy and I never finished it. So that was Pete Scazerro's Emotionally Healthy Leader, so I wanted to finish that. And then by the time I got there, I had a couple of other books on my list, which we talked about last episode, which you had been kind of led to.
So you stole my books.
If you like. I had been led to by, you had been led to, and I thought they'd been really compelling for you, so I would like to read them as well. I wanted to read Christine Cain's Don't Look Back, which is a new book that she released, because I'd had a really powerful experience with one of her previous books in 2021 when I'd been on holidays and just listening to a book.
How Did I Get Here?
Yes, How Did I Get Here? That's right. That was a really powerful book for me personally. And I also just wanted to take some time to do something that my professional supervisor had encouraged me to do in the sabbatical, which was to, slow down enough to think about and dream about what I would actually want the next 7-year period of productivity in my life to look like.
Yeah, wow. So that's a lot of stuff to cram in.
Yeah, because if I finish that thought, because I want people to hear this, because I think there'll be other people that are maybe similar to this. I've formed a theology as a child and young adult about your will be done in me, Lord, and just kind of, the whole open doors, closed doors, that kind of thing, like God will just lead me. I won't make a step unless God leads me somewhere. And I don't think that's a wrong theology, but I've kind of developed a theology in more recent years of understanding that God loves me and he's brought me through certain experiences and given me certain gifts and talents that I actually want to pursue, and that it's not an unholy thing to, to ask God for what I would like what I would enjoy spending my time doing. So that's what I wanted to do.
So they're the things that you just felt that you wanted to do that were, yeah.
And now that I say that, it is a lot.
Yeah.
And I think I always do, this is me, I do overestimate how much can be achieved in a period of time.
And yeah, and so, okay, well, were you able to, read all the books, listen to all the stuff? Did you have the dreaming time? Did you make notes about what those next 7 years would look like? So the first question was, what had you gone in there planning to do? Second follow-up is, what did you come away with?
I mean, I didn't do it all.
I know that you did the walks, though. You were pretty, from what you've told me, the walks tended to be quite profound.
Yeah, the walks were powerful. And so because I did so much walking, it did empower me to do a lot of listening.
Yeah.
So
okay.
I did finish the whole Christine Cain book. I was listening to that while I was walking. I did finish reading the Pete Scazerro book, and because I was reading it on paper. It was just it was a heavenly experience, because if you've ever been to Noosa, there's all these places where you can sit, built-in furniture, either in the sun or in the shade, depending on the weather.
Yeah.
And so I'd go for my morning walk, and then I'd come back to my room, have a shower, get a coffee, maybe get an acai bowl, special little treat, and then go and sit in one of these places where I could sit and look at the ocean, just stare at the ocean, and then look down at my page and read a bit, and then stare at the ocean, take a sip of my coffee, eat a bite of my acai.
Oh, wow.
It was just it was like
heaven.
I've actually just had this thought right now. Imagine if heaven was like that. I'd actually really enjoy it.
What about the people who like to be with other people? Heaven.
We don't need a theology on that at the moment. But
okay, that's fun. So yeah, you'll be able to.
So I did that.
Yeah.
I got partway through Deuteronomy and then continued that, and I was okay with starting some of these things. And we still had several weeks to go. So I started one of your books. I did write lists, because I'm a list writer, about what is it that I uniquely bring to the church and the kingdom of God on the earth, and what are the things I'm good at, and what do I love to do? What if I could do whatever I wanted for the next 7 years, what would it look like?
Okay. I mean, are you going to share any of that with us? We've got time to hear some of your takeaways from what you're reading and, your time with God in those quiet times.
I mean, it was just I found it just such a profound experience, those few days. And I just felt like God met me in so many moments throughout the days. And just in miraculous ways, I experienced his presence. And so, ironically, my journal, when I look at it, what I wrote down, I wrote some things down when I was at the airport at Noosa, Sunshine Coast, ready to fly home to Sydney, because I had so many stories that I didn't want to forget. And so I just dot pointed them all so that I could go back and write about them later, which I've never actually done because there was so many of them.
So you don't have any stories written down?
Oh, no, I've got I haven't got them written out word for word, but I've got thoughts. I mean,
well, let's hear them. That's what we're here for.
I'm trying to just pick
which
ones.
Nervous,
Like I'm not nervous. There's just so many.
Is it too personal?
No, it's not too personal.
It's a secret.
I'll just start going through and then you can stop me because we'll probably just run out of time.
Okay.
This one
Do you
morning.
want me to read them?
No. This one morning after I did my morning walk, because it was my dream to do that walk up to Hell's Gates every morning and come back. And so this one morning I'd been up, come back, got my coffee, sitting looking at the ocean. And I noticed that there was this lady near me who was taking a photo of something that was kind of past me. And I looked in the direction where she was taking a photo and I could see there was a rainbow. And the end of the rainbow was literally on the sand of Noosa Head's main beach. And I've never seen the end of a rainbow like that before. I have once before on one of my other mountain walks in the Hunter Valley seen the end of a rainbow kind of going into a paddock where there was high grass and stuff. But here I felt like I could literally see the end of the rainbow touching the sand.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, that's amazing. Next minute, I realised that it's actually a double rainbow.
Wow.
And I just had like one of those internal heart jumping like feelings of like just feeling like God had put that on just for me. And then, so I sat there and enjoyed it for a while. And then I was like, I better go, and I'm still all sweaty and whatever from my walk. I'll go and have a shower and I'll come and do whatever I, am wanting to do today of that list of things. And so as I'm going back to my room, which was just kind of one street back from Hastings Street, I could see that this double rainbow was going across the main roundabout of, Noosa Head's main beach, and the other end of it was landing right on the apartment block where I was staying.
Wow.
And I honestly, I had one of those, I don't know if anyone else has ever experienced it before, but I have a few times, where I just believe that God loves me enough that, I know it's not just for me, but it kind of feels like it could just be for me. And I'm like looking around, can you guys see this? Like God's turned this on just for me today.
It's like, no, what rainbow? We can't see it. What are you talking about?
And so I already had really great assurance of that. However, just like the kindness of God, later on that day, I very randomly received a phone call from another pastor in our movement, Pastor Rosaire, actually, if you're listening back. And it was just such a random phone call. And, I was on the sabbatical. I wasn't doing, #work stuff, but I just thought, I've just answered this phone call. And that's also rare for me. Normally I let people leave a message, find out what they want, and then call them back. Anyway, so I decided to just answer this phone call.
Yep.
And Roz was just ringing me for a completely random thing. And she was like, oh, that's right, you're on your sabbatical. We're having a bit of chit-chat. And I told her about the rainbow, and she said, oh, that's God. And I said, yeah, I know. And then she said, that's for you. And I said, yeah, I know. And then we just, she prayed for me over the phone that, I would continue to hear from God and experience God's presence on the sabbatical and, the answers to my questions and all of this. So like God in his goodness and kindness chose to just confirm even with somebody else who would understand like how special that experience was with the rainbow. So that was one thing.
Okay.
You waiting for more?
Yeah, I mean, you're really fleshing them out, aren't you?
That's why I told you there's not going to be time to tell you all of my
Well,
stories.
you've got dot points. That should.
I had a couple
sharp.
of emotional responses. I rang my friend Beck Riley in Victoria to talk to her about an experience that she's had in her decision making in ministry life, and she had to make a big call a few years ago that was a pretty big sacrifice to move away from family, to go and follow a call to lead a church in Victoria, move away from everything familiar and all the contacts and connections, and plus having a dad who's unwell. And so, we've talked about how we'd gone into the sabbatical wanting to have a heart that was open to doing whatever God said in the next season. And so we wanted to be ready to say yes if God told us to move somewhere completely random and do something completely different and move away from family and friends. And so I just was asking her to talk me through what that decision-making process was like again. I guess just in case God asked us to do something similar. Anyway, so we're chatting. We had quite a long chat, and I'm really blessed by my friendship with Beck. And I was talking to her about one of my dreams to do more study around the area of, the theology of complementarianism and egalitarianism. And that's something that I've studied in depth in my master's degree, and I was quite interested in doing a PhD study along those lines about, the roles of women and men in ministry and marriage and those kind of things.
Yep.
And I said to her, I shared with her this idea that I had, which I hadn't dared to say out loud before to anyone, even to you, I don't think.
Ooh, this is the first time I'm hearing about this now.
I don't think so. About, maybe like if I could have whatever I wanted, maybe in this next 7-year period, rather than trying to, do a PhD on top of full-time work, which is how I did my master's, and it was very hard, maybe taking a step back from paid work, doing less hours in order to do time, studying without it being such a big, mental toll.
Yeah, big load.
Yeah, big load to be carrying. And as I'm talking to her about it, I just started crying because within me there was this feeling that if I were to, in one scenario, this is all hypothetical, but in a scenario where like you stayed working full-time for church and took on the lead role on your own, and I just went back to part-time so that I could study, and I became answerable to you and you became the leader. Which
sounds like a good idea.
Sounds like your dream.
Yep.
Which is not which is kind of it felt to me like the opposite of something that we've worked very hard to get to and to teach other people how to interact with, and something that I'd written about in my study and studied in my study. So there was this little thought in my heart that if I were to do that, then it would be undoing the past 6 years of work that I have done to try and both shine a light and practically implement a way of doing marriage and ministry that is truly equal. And so I just start sharing it with Beck and just start crying, and she was so gracious and kind to me. And
passed your tissue?
She would have if
states?
She could. Yeah, across 2 states. And she just so gently reassured me that if I were to do that, if that was my dream and God were to give me the dream in my heart, however that would work out, that it wouldn't actually undermine the work that I've done to build equality for women in ministry and marriage, and that it actually demonstrates an even greater level of equality, because it demonstrates. She was like, well, isn't equality having the freedom to choose to do what you want to do? And it just like got me straight to the heart, because she's exactly right. Like that's what equality is. And so in my journal, like the notes that I've written about that interaction was that I had that realization through talking to somebody, which is why community is everything about the Christian walk, that my word for the year, which was free, was about being free of the opinions and expectations of others.
Okay.
And so, but perhaps I was still being held back because I was worried about what people would think if I were to go down that path.
Well, that's a pretty powerful conversation. I'm sure Beck didn't realise she was into that when you called. Okay, so there's some other, in terms of like these sound like kind of key moments where you really felt like God was either confirming something that was already on your heart or giving you some, fresh direction for the future. But obviously nothing kind of nailed down, because like you said, we've still got weeks left of the sabbatical, and it was just more like a season to let God stir us up a little bit and also just re-energise us a little bit about vision and future. So, I'd like to hear from you what, like after the 4 nights away, what kind of has stayed with you? Like what have you been able to carry on holding on to from those few days away, and why would that be important for someone who takes that time away to kind of really embed those key moments post the break, post sabbatical? What have you taken away? Why has it been important for you to hold on to those things?
Oh, well, I think we're talking about episode 8 there, but...
Oh, wow. Let's not get ahead of ourselves then.
No, but there was one other experience which was pivotal and key, which then got kind of added to in the other weeks, and which I've been able to hold on to as we've kind of emerged from the sabbatical, which for me happened while I was at Noosa.
Okay.
So the final morning we were there, I was there. The final morning I was there. My dream was to get up to the summit, Hell's Gates, by sunrise. And so I set the alarm, got up at the right time, checked the app and whatever. And for this final morning, because I'm catching a plane later that morning, I decided to treat myself. And instead of listening to a book or something on the way up, I just decided to listen to worship music.
Ooh, what a treat!
That's a treat for me, because it's just like I'm just there to enjoy this experience for the last morning. Who knows when I get to be back at Noosa again by myself?
Just going to wrap it up.
So I'm listening to our Beyond Church Heart of Worship playlist.
Oh, great playlist,
which is a classic, and I hadn't listened to it for a while, so
link
it was
that in the episode notes.
All new. And 2 significant things happened. While I was walking, I'm just listening to a couple of songs. I had it on shuffle. And the first couple of songs I felt like were a bit, they were like, oh, these are not my favourite songs on this playlist. That's funny.
Did you just skip them?
No. And so I was thinking that's ironic, because here I am treating myself to listen to these songs, and I'm not getting the ones that are my favourites. And so my mind is wandering, and my mind wanders past everything that I've experienced over these past few days. And it's really going deep on that idea of being able to maybe work part-time and study. But because I'm an overthinker, my mind is going to, but how is that even possible? Like practically and financially mostly, because, we're in an expensive season of life with like 3 teenagers and a preteen living in our house, eating food. You can't just give them...
No. 6 sandwiches.
$5 Big W shoes anymore.
Per
They care about what they look like and such.
Yeah.
And so, how would I be able to afford to take time just to study? It doesn't pay any money doing that. And so I'm thinking about all these, like I'm pretty entrepreneurial and creative. I'm thinking about all these ideas that I could do to
get some side hustles on the
go. Side hustles, or do a bit of work that pays a lot more money per hour, which then frees up other hours. That kind of thing. I'm thinking about my relationship with Alpha Crucis, and whether you can get grants to do study and blah blah blah. And I'm thinking about hustling, and I'm talking to God about it. This music's going in the background. I'm talking to God about it, and I'm thinking, I know that I can hustle. I've done it before. I could do it again if I had to. Like, I could just find the money. I'm good at that. But boy, the idea of doing that this time just makes me feel exhausted. I just felt like I'm just having a moment there while I'm walking of thinking, I just don't feel like I've got a grace for that at the moment. Like, right when I'm having that thought, a kookaburra came and landed on the fence right next to where I was walking. It just happened to be a part of the pathway where there's a fence and where it's right beside the path. And I've never had a kookaburra be that close to me before. And it literally just came and landed right kind of one step ahead of where I was. So I stopped and it looked at me.
And laughed?
It did not laugh.
Wow.
Just looked at me. I was basically close enough to touch it. All I had time to do was kind of try to get my phone out of my pocket because I thought I'm going to take a photo of this kookaburra. And just as I was kind of getting my phone out of my pocket slowly, it just kind of, no rush, looked at me and then flew away again. And I cannot describe it any other way except to say I 100% felt sure that it was a sign from God in that moment telling me that I didn't have to worry. And I didn't have to, and, you know, I'd been listening to that book, Letters from a Young Poet, about waiting in the questions and not needing to know the answers. And I just felt like it was God's sign to me personally saying, you don't need to know the answer right now, but you don't need to worry about that right now. You just don't need to worry about it. It was a profound experience. And so then I continued on my walk. And as I got up towards the summit, literally just as the sunrise came above the horizon, the song Sunrise came onto my playlist after I'd been like having a laugh with God.
Ragging out on the playlist all morning.
Oh, thanks God for giving me all the songs I don't like the most on the playlist. And then just as the sun came over the horizon, sunrise, and then I think the next song was Gratitude. And like it just kind of went on this series of songs that were just like, you know, God speaking to my heart. And it was just such, like, even right to the last moment, God is showing me that he was in this whole experience. And so it's that kookaburra moment that I've leaned on again and again since then. And as we'll find out in future episodes, it's actually kind of become even more profound over the latter weeks of the sabbatical.
It's a repetitive theme.
It is.
Well, there's some big takeaways, but without giving anything away, we're not necessarily going to unpack what that future might look like just yet, because we can save that for the future episodes. We just wanted to get a bit of a sense of what that week was like, or 4 nights was like for you. So I guess before we wrap it up for this episode, is there any final things that you think would be beneficial for people to hear about that week and about the idea of having that time of solitude, silence, away from the normal flow and routine of life?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like, it was so good in so many ways. So I've shared just a couple of the stories that I experienced of, God's presence feeling so near. But it's also good just from other perspectives, because you see things from different eyes when you're there by yourself. Like, I kept having these random experiences where, because I was going, I was trying to get a table for one when I was eating out, which I never do. And I was okay to do it, but I got this awareness of
what it was like to be lonely.
Yeah, well, of what it's like to be asking for a table for one. Because they put you in the dodgy spaces, or they just tell you that there's no table because they don't want to waste a table on you.
They could get 2 instead of 1. So
exactly.
They say, sorry, we don't do that. Well, they don't say that, but
they don't say they don't do it, but they say, sorry, we're all booked out. And then you see other people ask.
Wow.
And if there's more than one of them, they get a table.
Wow.
I know.
Discrimination.
Well, yeah, and then later on I read it, like after I got home, I read an article about tables for one and the whole...
putting you in the kitchen or in the toilet.
Or in the thoroughfare where everybody's walking past. This one, my first night I was there actually, I was at quite a well-known place, restaurant, and I asked for a table for one, and it was like a Monday night. It's not a busy night in hospitality, and they put me in this tiny little square of a table, high bar table with a stool, one stool, that was just right in the middle of nowhere in the thoroughfare where people were coming in and out, going to the bar, going and sitting down. This is ridiculous. Like, you just get treated like a nobody when you're on your own.
Well, there you go. It's a good lesson to learn.
That's right.
Go in groups. Groups of at least 2.
God puts the lonely in families.
Yeah, or in the back room.
And then this other random experience I had was when 3 times I was mistaken for staff.
Because of the black and white clothes you were wearing?
No, that was once. One time I was wearing black and white
And the
clothing.
tray you were carrying?
No.
And the notepad in your pocket?
I was standing near the doorway, and
Seating people.
I asked a couple that was waiting,
Oh, right.
have you got a table yet?
Where would
or
you
have
like
you
to
been?
sit?
Has somebody talked to you yet?
And they thought you were just...
And they thought I was asking
yeah.
like as a waiter.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for asking. Yes, we're looking for a table for 2.
But then another time in a clothing shop, I'm just literally like pulling out pulling a dress or something out from the rack to have a look at it. And a lady with a dog is walking past, and she was like, "Oh, am I allowed to bring dogs in here?" I was like, "I don't know."
Go for it. You said go for it. If you want, you can bring a pack of them dogs if you want.
But it was quite confronting being a 43-year-old woman, so on my own. And here's what the weird thing was about it. I found myself wanting to validate myself, like people love me. You know what I mean? Like, I've got a really rich life. I'm here by choice. I'm here alone by choice. Like, I want to be here alone. You know what I mean? Like, it was weird, these, like what it brought up in me. Like, I had to explain myself because I don't know. We're going a bit deep here, but because I felt like people were seeing me for maybe less than or different than who I actually am. And I found that quite confronting. But at the same time, it was a really good experience because it just gave me eyes into other people's worlds and lives that I wouldn't have had otherwise. So that's a long-winded way of saying why it's such a valuable experience for people to carve out the time to be alone in a different place for a few days each year, I would suggest.
Yeah, great. And to do different kinds of things, either study or self-reflection or meditation.
Totally.
Or it could be different for different people.
Because you could totally waste that opportunity.
Yeah, that's right.
That would be so easy.
You wouldn't want to go in there with, it's not a holiday. It's an intentional break from the normal flow of routine for, to be in the presence, to be aware of the presence of God and to be reflective and, it doesn't have to be busy time, but it certainly should be valuable and not wasted.
Don't get me wrong, I totally made the most of the fact that I didn't have to set an alarm. I could eat whatever I wanted and whenever I wanted, like to my preferences. I could do things slowly. So like I talked about reading a few pages of my book or a page of my book and then just sitting and staring at the ocean, like all of that is still time spent seeking God. In fact, I was reading about seeking God while I was there, Pete Scazerro's definition of it, and it was just like being with God with intention.
Yeah.
And so sitting there staring at the ocean is still seeking God. But it's not, it's just not wasting the opportunity.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, that's quite a comprehensive look at those days. So thank you for that. And as we wrap, we'll point to our next episode, number 6, which is...
It's Phuket, baby.
It's a interesting kind of holiday. And we'll talk about why we added that as well into the break. And we'll talk about what happened there and what didn't happen and what God was saying and doing in us through that. And then that leads into, we're heading on the downhill run now.
That's it. We're past halfway.
Yeah. All right. So thanks for joining us once again. We're hopeful that you're finding these beneficial. You can always let us know.
Don't start that business again. How are they letting you know?
You can send, I don't know. They just
stop it.
Come and visit. All right. That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on Our Sabbatical Story.
See you next time.
Part 5. See you next time.